Okay, we got Dan here, Dan the Man Click, the freaking 28 Red Fox this season in Pennsylvania, pretty sweet. So here's the deal, guys. We're shooting a live video just for you service side field staff up here in the studio, and what I want you guys to do, we got the laptop. Post any predator hunting questions that you guys have right here, okay? And we're gonna answer them. So Dan.
We just wanted to go over a couple things. I had a lot of guys this season ask me some different questions after I was posting pictures and stuff, and a lot of basic stuff. I mean, there's nothing that I do that's out of the ordinary, so I just want to
kill
go over.
fox.
Yeah. So this year's been a good year so far. My cousin Andrew Howdy-Shelter, the field staffer, he did really well up until he got some injury there, so he had to get laid off a little bit, but. My brother's been doing pretty good with fox hunting, so it's just a couple things I wanted to go over. And again, if you guys have any questions, just hit us up here.
Post them away. Yeah, no questions so far.
But basically, first thing, I got a lot of questions about what sounds I'm using, how long I'm on the stands, what areas are good. And with predator hunting, and more specifically here in South Central PA, we do a lot of red fox hunting. There are coyotes around. We do see them. We do call them in occasionally. Gray fox too, but majority of it is just the red fox. So that's what I have a lot of luck with, especially this season. So basically, I'll get into a stand. Wind is your number one thing. You always got to play the wind. In these fox, these predators, that's their number one thing. Especially this late in the season. The first half of the season, they're kind of dumb when it comes to that. They're not so much worried about the wind. They haven't been pressured. They haven't been called that. So that's not their main concern. But this later part of the season, after the second half of the season, they're gonna play the wind. They're gonna try and get downwind to you. So always kind of keep that in the back of your mind, even when you're walking into stands. I mean, don't ever walk across a field that you plan on calling back across, because if a fox comes in and it walks across that path that you walked in. I don't care if you have rubber boots on or you spray yourself down. They're dogs, man. They can smell anything. Yeah, they're gonna smell it. I've had that happen to me. I've seen that, even in archery season, I've seen fox come across where I walk into my stand. As soon as they get to that spot, they're gone. So,
got our first question.
Here we go.
What's the difference between green and red predator lights, and what scenario you want to use? That's by Steve.
Okay.
Up there in Rhode Island.
Good question. Yeah, I use red lights, and a lot of people think that the fox can't see the red light. That's not true. Fox can see the light. It's
the cone in their eye, right?
Yeah, they can see it. I mean, it's not like the red light's invisible to them. Coyotes as well. Everything can see that light. The way I kind of describe it is, at night you see the moon in the sky. It's very bright. It's not anywhere close to you. So when it comes to a fox seeing a light, you want to get that light on them right away and hold it on them, and they don't know if that light's 10 feet in front of them or 2 miles away. So they can see it, but you can kind of blind them and use that to your advantage when you're calling them in. You get away with a little bit of movement, behind that light. So I use
bounce.
Exactly. Try and keep it right on them, right on their eyes, and they're not gonna. They don't tend to shy away from that. With the green light, I've had experience in the past with green light, and it's too bright. It's too much for them. The red light is a little bit softer, and so they tend to, come into the red light rather than the green light. That's not to say that, again, later in the season, a fox might see that light, and if they've been called that before, they might, relate that light to something bad, and so they may shy away from it a little bit. So. I keep the light right on, man. I blind them. I blind the crap out of them. Just keep it right in their eyes. And we were up hunting this weekend. We called a nice red in, and we also
awesome.
Charged right into us. I mean, I had the light on the whole time.
No issue.
We had a coyote coming in at one point. Same thing. That one I got our wind, I think, a little bit, but buggered out. But they don't seem to mind it. So definitely go with the red light. And that's not to say that the white light or a green light doesn't work. I just personally, it's just my personal opinion. I know guys out in Texas use the white lights all the time, and they have luck with it. But I think out there you're hunting animals that are not as pressured. Here, especially here in PA, man, people are after them. So they're just.
I'll tell you, just from something I've observed too with the red lens. I mean, other than the scientific principles behind red and the cone and everything else. it's a lot easier just to detect the eye shine without messing up your night vision too, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's also that's a great point. It's also not as a bright light for us looking at it. With a white light, you're blowing up that animal with that light, and with the red light, it's a little bit softer especially for filming it. It's a lot nicer. So. Good question.
We got a question from Dan Anderson from Jersey. He said he's been out a lot of times, never lucky enough. Could always get him close, but never gets a shot. So they tend to outsmart him. What do we got to do to get that final bit to get him in to get the shot? He said that a lot of times he goes silent next time he tries to call. So I think the first question for you, Dan, if you're listening, if you can chime in.
I'm assuming he's going after coyotes. That's kind of what the question's on there for coyotes.
The question I was going to ask you just real quick, Dan Anderson, is how much property are you hunting? Are you hunting the same spots over and over again, or do you have multiple tracts of land? Because, Dan, I want you to answer this question, but just tell these guys briefly a little bit about, like, when you're checking the wind, right?
Yeah.
If it's not right, you're going to go somewhere else because you've plenty of places to hunt.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just like deer hunting. You guys that are big deer hunters, you have different stands for different winds. It's the same thing with predator hunting. It's actually, I think, in my opinion, it's more important to play the wind with the predators because, especially here in Pennsylvania, the coyotes in this area, oh my God, are they smart. I mean, they tend to be they're the toughest things to hunt in PA, hands down. They're so smart. And again, we were hunting properties this past weekend. I have a lot of properties upstate PA, and same thing. If the wind was blowing wrong on this side of the road, we could hop over to this side of the road. And even when the wind was in our favor, it was swirling. And we had a coyote was barking. We were setting up on a stand. Coyote barked behind us. We quick packed up our stuff, ran 100 yards down the field to get set up on that coyote. And before we even got the call going, that coyote was coming right in. As soon as I turned the sound on, it looked up. It stopped for a second and started coming straight in again. Had the wind been better in that situation, now the wind was The wind was great for us when we were setting up the original stand, and when the coyote came behind us, I knew he would get our wind, so I tried to get to a spot where we could get him before he got to us. We lost that battle. He got to us first, so he did get our wind. But that's kind of a common question. A lot of times, guys will be hunting for coyotes, especially, and you hear them barking and howling and things like that, and you think, man, they're right over there, and they probably are. And here in PA, man, they are just very, very tough animals to call. Like you said, Jim, with them being pressured, it takes one time for a coyote to get shot at or get called in and get your wind, and he remembers that. He remembers that the rest of the season.
They got a PhD.
Yeah, exactly right. They're so smart. So and honestly, I've only ever killed one coyote. I've called in a lot of them. We had some success earlier this season. A buddy of mine I took out. So I have had some success with coyotes, but they're just a whole different kind of thing. They're just so much tougher. Red fox, red fox in particular, man, I've had those things come in and knock my collar over. 5 feet in front of me. So, and again, that's usually what I'm targeting when I go out anyway. But, Dan, if you could just kind of check back in and just see, maybe just to get more specific with that, and
we can always follow up later.
I can follow up later on that, and I can message you or whatever too. That's cool.
So we got another question from Tyler Langley from Tennessee, and just to jump into this before you answer this, Dan, Tyler asked, "What's the recommended call?" And I just want to say really quick, I've done a lot of predator hunting the last few years, a little bit with Dan here and his cousin Andy. I've also done some with Brady Hilbert and Zach Workman, and these guys are all awesome predator hunters. I've learned a ton. One of the things that I realized doing this stuff is the advantage of the Fox Pro. I used to use hand calls. All these guys have something in common. They run the call nonstop. So before you answer this question, I just want you guys to know there's not a specific right call. So why don't you talk about a little bit about the sequence of how you go into a set?
Yeah, so I'll just quick run through just a basic kind of how I set up almost every single stand, no matter where I'm at. And this works, especially early in the season. This is kind of a go-to for any species, coyote, fox, gray fox, whatever. Basically, I will only sit most areas for 15 to 20 minutes. And so what I'll do is I'll start out with kind of a quieter sound. And like Jimmy said, I run this down the whole time. So a lot of times, especially when I'm in an area with a lot of red fox, they love bird sounds. And again, on the fox, I run a Fox Pro call or Shockwave, and they have a great bird sound. They have great sounds. All the sounds are great. But The one that I use a lot is Titmouse Tantrum, Ranting Redbird, and Nutty Nuthatch. Those 3 bird sounds are that's my go-to for my first 5 minutes of calling. I'll run that for 5 minutes, one of those 3, and I'll mix it up. You don't want to play the same thing every single time, but I'll mix it up, and I'll play those sounds usually for the first 5 minutes or so, and then I jump right to usually Baby Cottontail. It's a softer, it's not a really, really loud call, and the reason why you want to start out with a quieter call is if you sneak into your spot and there's a fox or a coyote or whatever, 100 yards to your right, or even 50 yards, or sometimes 30 yards, right off into the brush somewhere, you don't want to blast that sound and you're going to spook them out of there. It doesn't sound natural. And so I build up to that. So I start out with a quieter sound and work my way up into a louder, usually a jackrabbit distress or a cottontail distress or whatever. And it doesn't really matter which one you use. There's so many that they have, but I just start with that quieter sound and build your way up. And then that way for the last 5 minutes, I do them each for 5 minutes. For the last 5 minutes, if there's a fox or coyote way off in the distance, it gives them the chance to maybe he heard it, at the 10-minute mark, but now it's louder, and now he's gonna, hopefully come in and give you a look, and then hopefully get you a shot at him. And to add on to that, also, I know a lot of guys will start out with a real quiet sound like a mouse squeak or a vole squeak. Again, great sound that you can try that too for right off the bat. I don't usually use that. The time that I use that the most is actually when I have a fox maybe in a field already, and I'll sneak in and I'll have it out there. It's a really good coaxing sound. It's something easy. It's very it's a common thing that fox especially eat, and coyotes, mice and voles and things like that, rodents. So a lot of times if I sneak in and have a fox already out in the field, and again you want to scan the fields as you guys are going in. Scan the fields because they could be out there mousing.
We've seen stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. They're hunting the field.
Yeah, right. You get out there and they're already out there on the move. So get out there, scan the fields as you're walking in, and if you have something out there in the field already, man, throw that rodent distress or that mouse squeak or whatever. And a lot of times, man, they'll just turn, they'll stare right at you, and they're coming in on a string, man. They come right in. So. That works really good for a coaxing. So
that was another question. For whatever reason, guys, if we don't hit your questions, just type them again. I can only see like 4 at a time in the live feed. But Ryan Lamango from Pennsylvania here, he had just asked a little bit ago, and the comment went away, but the question was with these e-callers, how loud do you do the volume? And that was actually something we had discussed this past weekend on our predator hunt trip. So do you want to jump into that?
Yeah, sure. And this again kind of goes with the last thing I was talking about. I usually start out. Now my shockwave goes from 1 to 40 is how high it goes in the sound. I usually start out at about 30, low 30s, which is pretty loud. But again, I'm picking a kind of a quieter sound. And if you guys are new to getting into this, you go out and you buy a Fox Pro or whatever caller you get. Play around with it before you go out. Kind of have an idea of what the sounds are, how loud they get to. But I'll start out with that quieter sound at right around 30, and again as I'm going through the stands, man, I start blasting it, and especially big open areas, blast it. You might have fox or coyote that come in from hundreds and hundreds of yards away. That coyote that we called this weekend, that was 500-600 yards away, and then we closed the gap 100 yards, and it was closing the gap in the meantime.
And the only reason we know that is because you
right.
made some
we never would have even known
he
was there, right? Had he not started barking and stuff. So. They can hear it from a long way off. So, especially fox and all these predators, man, their hearing is one of their number one things that they use. Definitely don't be afraid to blast that a little bit, especially in the woods. And a lot of guys will hunt daytime in the woods. It sounds like it's really loud because it's bouncing off of all those trees and bouncing back to you. That sounds kind of ricocheting. So, you might play it up against a tree row or up against a woodlot or in the woods, and you're thinking, man, this sounds so loud. But don't be afraid to blast it. It's sounding louder than it really is because there's a lot of stuff in the way. So you want to make sure you get that sound as far as you possibly can. But again, that's why I start with a quieter sound first, and that way you can build up to that louder sound, and hopefully anything further away is gonna come in time. So
good. Okay, so we got 2 questions that coincide here. We got Steve up in Rhode Island, and then Greg Jones in Oklahoma. Steve asked, "Do you use any predator scents?" Or just strictly calls, and then Greg asked, "What do you recommend for decoys?" So those it kind of all goes together. So do you want to tackle how you do that stuff?
Night hunting decoys are not going to do you a lot of good. Primarily, that's what I'm doing is night hunting. But I do have a decoy on my old Fox Pro collar that I have, a Wildfire 2. There's a decoy on that, and I have used that in the daytime hours for fox and for coyote, and it works great. It works absolutely great. I would say absolutely get a decoy. Absolutely. I mean, I've had fox come in, and as I'm kind of moving over to get the gun on him, especially in the daytime, he looking right at you, But that decoy is just enough to keep their attention going, and it definitely works. So decoy, especially the Fox Pro decoys. I mean, they're $60-$70 tops for the bigger ones. So.
They plug right into.
Yeah, they plug right in. Absolutely. So, definitely use the decoys if you have one. Again, I don't have one on my Shockwave right now, but I guess that's because I have another decoy on my other collar, so I have the option if I want to use that. But so that's good. What was the other one then? Sense. So Sense, again, we've sprayed ourselves down. You can use Sense. And
I think he's asking if you're using like attractant scent.
Yeah, I mean, as far as
I've never tried, but
I use rabbit urine occasionally, and that's only if I'm using the decoy. And the reason I do that is because I'll put the decoy and the collar 30, 40, 50, 60 yards out, and I'll put that rabbit urine on there. I usually just spray the decoy itself, and that works really well, especially in a crosswind. You're calling into an area, the wind's blowing, right to left. And it's gonna, the fox is gonna come in downwind of that. As soon as he catches that scent, he sees the decoy going. That's a deadly combination. He's not gonna not come into that, So, and hopefully he doesn't see you, pulling the gun up to get a shot off. But
right.
At night hunting especially, I usually put the collar, 10, 15 feet right in front of me. A lot of times we don't put it out that far in front of you. So at night,
explain how you do the call at nighttime because of the eye shot.
Yeah, sure.
That's a really important topic for night hunting because the e-callers, especially these new calls, you can put the call
500 yards away
from your remote access, but that's not always at your advantage.
Yeah,
and that's something that I learned the hard way in the past. And you got to explain that.
In daytime, especially, you want to put the caller out in front of you. Have their attention drawn to that call. Now at nighttime, I put the caller fairly close in front of us. 5-10 feet in front of you, something like that. And the reason for that is that when you're calling at night, you need to catch their eye reflection. So you need them looking in your direction. And it works a lot nicer if you have the collar in front of you, because number one, you're going to catch their eye shine, but number two, if I'm shining a light at this fox or this coyote coming in, and my decoy's 70 yards over to my right, he might look at you for a second because he notices the light, but you might lose him. And especially if he's out a couple hundred yards, it's very difficult to see him, especially with the red light. It's just difficult to see him, and you might see him here, and then you lose him, and then 40, 50 yards away, you see him again for a brief moment. So it's you definitely want the collar fairly close in front of you, and that just keeps their attention on you, on that light, so you can watch them come in the whole way.
Keep it steady in their eyes. And like, for some of you guys in other states that are messing around with the thermal and stuff, you can use the call and the thermal to your advantage by setting the call, playing a crosswind, where they're just looking at the call, they're not paying attention to you.
But with the thermals and like night visions, here in PA we can't use that stuff, but other states you guys can. Yeah, something like that, I would absolutely use that to my advantage and put the decoy out or the caller out in front, at a pretty good distance that way. Again, same thing as in the daytime. That way they're not looking towards you because you don't need that light. Now here in PA we need to use the light to get their eye shine. So we want them looking right at us. So that's a good question. Thanks, guys.
We got any other questions out here right now?
Did we miss any?
Yeah, like I said, I can only scroll down so far.
Yeah, I don't know what's.
But that's a pretty good wrap there. If you guys post questions on here, like the live video will be here to check out.
Yeah.
And then Dan's happy to answer questions.
Yeah, you guys have any questions? Message me on Messenger or just send me something on Facebook. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to answer. This year especially, got a chance to meet up with a lot of field staffers here locally. I had a lot of fun. I met up with Ryan Mango. I met up with Brady Hilbert. We did some hunting in York. I met up with my cousin Andrew Howdy Shell. We had a great night in Lancaster. We killed 5 that night. We had a really good night. And Tyler, I got to meet up with Tyler.
Gray fox.
Yeah, I got my gray fox this year with him. That was a lot of fun, and a buddy of his shot a nice red. So
yeah, that's what this program's all about, guys.
Yeah.
Just making new friends and learning new stuff, starting some new hobbies. And, so it's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out, Dan.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Hope this was educational for you guys. If you want to see more videos like this, happy to get you guys in the studio. But yeah, Dan, top notch, man, predator hunting, and hopefully he's gonna get to 30 red fox tonight.
Hopefully, we'll see what happens.
All right, so I'm gonna shut her down here. So thanks for checking it out.
Yeah,
guys.
thanks, guys. We'll see you later.